Bizarre things from Wild West saloons. Picture yourself crossing a dusty street and pushing through swinging doors into a lamplight-lit saloon. Inside, you'd find cowboys on break, exhausted miners, patrolling soldiers, and outlaws all mingling together. Called saloons as an adaptation of salon, these gathering spots multiplied as the United States pushed west toward the Pacific, with towns springing up around mines and freshly laid railroad tracks. A wooden bar and worn deck of cards set the stage for quick deals and rumors that traveled faster than the mail. Real life had none of the Hollywood shine. The region ran on shaky laws, ongoing conflicts with native peoples, and folks trying to stake their claim. In the saloon, contracts were sealed with a handshake, disputes ended in street duels, and musicians drowned out shouts with violin and piano. There were makeshift rules like leaving your gun at the counter, and customs that seem odd today, running tabs for travelers, tokens you could trade for a bath, and judges picked from among customers to settle fights. More than just a backdrop, the saloon was a bar, post office, stage, courtroom, and shelter. In the next scenes, we'll dig into the stories and quirks that made these places the noisy heart of a West under construction, where myth and survival drank from the same glass. Before they became Wild West movie backdrops with swinging doors and polished counters, saloons started out rough. They were stopping points on the march west, light tents, crooked planks, a fire going, and makeshift chairs where travelers and fortune seekers could rest and catch up. There, among dust and maps, deals were made, furs were traded, and partnerships were sealed. The first to carry the name saloon sprang up in Brown's Hole, on the border of Wyoming, Utah, and Colorado in 1822. Inside simple walls, fur traders gathered like men plotting routes. Every toast opened a path, every deal redrew the map. The classic image, rustic cantina, columns, and bar, came later, when small towns grew into cities and improvisation gave way to a permanent address. When gold started calling the shots, the frontier changed its face. By the mid-19th century, towns in the Midwest and West went from dots on the map to must-stop spots for anyone heading to the mines. Saloons popped up as shelter after long shifts. A quick bar, card tables, a place to make deals and catch your breath. News from the dig sites, job offers, and disputes settled on the fly all flowed through there. Between drinks, the fabric of community life was stitched together. With every new find, more hands showed up, and the business of rest kept growing. In Santa Barbara, California, 30 saloons opened right at the start of the rush. In Livingston, Montana, 33 cantinas served close to 3,000 people. And just like that, the gold fever moved people and shaped cities. In Old West saloons, the swinging door didn't open for shows or banquets. It opened above all for a drink. Just like bars today, the heart of the fun was drinking. Some places were rowdy, others more low-key. But in all of them, alcohol was in charge. A lack of technology and sanitation shaped the menu, few options and a lot of improvisation. It was common to mix burnt sugar, almost pure alcohol, and tobacco leaves. The result burned going down but did the job of clearing the dust from the trail. Cocktails already existed, combinations of ingredients with creative names. Tarantula juice, Taos lightning, red eye, coffin varnish. Forget fine filtering. Some recipes even called for tobacco and gunpowder. The nightlife was intense, tempers were short, and fights broke out easily, fueled by quick drinks and heated arguments over cards, debts, and honor. The most famous drink went by the name firewater. It wasn't a mix, it was strong liquor, a relative of the whiskey we know today. The name stuck during the first encounters between traders and native peoples. To prove its strength, they'd pour the liquid over a flame and watch it flare up. The scene spread across the frontier and sealed the name. As the frontier and the railroads advanced, more stable production methods and sales rules arrived. Bourbon, brandy, and Scotch whiskey became regulated, set standards, and signaled a new era. The saloon never stopped putting the drink center stage. But the story of the West began to swap improvisation for methods and brands, and the flavor took a new turn. In frontier towns, the saloon was more than just entertainment. It was a public stage. There, amid the creak of swinging doors, every choice carried weight. A man walking across the room knew that his move at the card table, his response to a provocation, or the way he handled a bottle could tarnish his image, land him in trouble, or feed his legend. The place acted out contests of masculinity, defending honor, demanding respect, proving you could hold your liquor. It wasn't unusual for small challenges to spark fights that ended before the music even stopped. Although the drink was the main draw, owners knew their business. To keep people around longer and run up the tab, they offered pool tables and gambling, music and dance acts, and sometimes impromptu shooting contests. In this way, the saloon organized social life, a meeting point, a competitive arena, and a stage where reputations were made and broken in a single night. Imagine a saloon in the 19th century West. Beyond the bar, poker tables kept the business running. Owners knew that with cards on the table, customers drank more, and under the influence of alcohol, they were willing to place bigger bets. There was one practical detail. Without electric refrigeration, keeping drinks cold was tough. Liquors came warm, and the rush to toss them back kept them from getting even warmer, especially in the summer. The turning point came in the late 1880s when refrigeration reached the saloons. Cold glasses, a flashy novelty, drew in the curious, expanded the customer base, and gave the nights a new rhythm. In this way, gambling and drinking became steady profit partners. When the swinging door opened, a familiar show of the late 19th century began. In the wake of railroads and gold rushes, saloons were both social hubs and business stages. There, women played the turning point of the night. Hired to sing, dance, and talk, they drove the energy of the room and defied the domestic norm. With tightly laced corsets and elaborate dresses, they presented an image crafted for the job. The assumption that all of them sold romantic favors spread with the myth of the West. In practice, though, things worked differently. Their main role was to keep the party going, extend the customer's stay, and with it, the spending. The business setup was clever. Customers offered drinks, the house charged for every round, and the women received colored water or tea instead. Sober, they could read the table and knew when to suggest a song, call someone to the dance floor, laugh at a misstep, or rein in an excess. Pay followed the logic of the bar. Every drink offered earned them a commission, added to a weekly wage. For many, it was a lifeline. Widows with no income, daughters of farm workers hit by bad harvests, young migrants looking for cash in hand. By mastering dance and conversation, they secured their livelihood and a measure of choice. Behind the glow of the lamps, there was discipline, calculation, and an economy of attention that kept saloons running. They were, in short, the silent gear that kept the cash flowing deep into the night. Push open the swinging doors of an Old West saloon and the scene can be deceiving. Plenty of trades mixed together, but social lines were clear. Prospectors, cowboys, farmhands, soldiers, and outlaws crowded the card tables, while fortune hunters counted coins at the bar. Even so, almost everyone there shared one trait. They were white. In much of the territory, ordinances kept native peoples out. Their presence, even as labor, was treated as a disturbance and by law pushed away. Not even soldiers escaped the half-closed door. Seen as enforcers and troublemakers, they were often met with a cold welcome. The saloon served as a refuge for those who preferred to stay out of the reach of authority. That's why people went by first names only, a tacit pact that protected shadowy pasts. Lawmen from the East with manners and rules from a different world were viewed as intruders, and outside stayed the so-called family women. Drinking and gambling marked a territory that the dominant moral code denied them. So, under lamplight and the clink of glasses, a space took shape, one of gathering but also of exclusion. On the expanding frontier, the saloon wasn't just about the bar and the games. It was the town's living room. Cattle deals were made there, partnerships sealed, and when the sheriff was absent, impromptu juries were set up to decide people's fates. The irony was that many of these places were owned by feared figures who saw the thirst for leisure as a profitable business. Wyatt Earp, Bat Masterson, Doc Holliday, Wild Bill Hickok, and Ben Thompson, sometimes as lawmen, sometimes as gunmen and gamblers, ran saloons in different towns. To the sound of the piano, they mixed profit, influence, and the fragile order of the West, and almost everything passed through their doors. By the late 19th century, anyone pushing through a saloon door wasn't just after drinks and music. They were stepping into a mix of dust, sweat, and hidden risks. Western towns were growing fast, but sewers, clean water, and ventilation were rare. In that closed environment, epidemics spread easily. Cold, smallpox, and especially sexually transmitted infections. Information was scarce, condoms were improvised, and penicillin didn't exist yet. When fever and sores showed up, doctors and healers turned to treatments that sound alarming today. Mercury pills, arsenic lotions, bloodletting. Many left the bar staggering not just from whiskey, but from the illness they carried with them. Close your eyes and picture a saloon. Almost always the same scene pops up. Two little swinging doors open, the hero walks in, and the piano goes silent. But in real life, that was the exception. On the 19th century frontier, with towns built around mines and railroads, saloon owners preferred regular doors with hinges and a lock. It was a practical choice. They protected the cash register, drinks, and gaming tables, controlled who came in, and kept curious eyes on the street from seeing what was going on inside. Travelers' accounts and newspaper ads mentioned doors locked at night. What we call saloon doors, also known as cafe or batwing doors, served another purpose. They were interior dividers, from the kitchen to the main room, from the storeroom to the bar. Easy to push through, they didn't seal anything, block noise, or offer any real security. In territories with weak law enforcement, no one trusted a half door to keep trouble out. There were exceptions. Some places had batwing doors behind the main entrance or inside, marking off reserved areas. The image we remember comes from show business. Movies looked for an instant gesture that could announce tension before the first line of dialogue. It's more cinematic to push through two swinging panels than to turn a door handle. When revisiting the Old West, it's worth separating memory from the screen. Batwing doors belong mostly to the imagination. In the dust of real streets, daily life was different. Heavy wood, a bolt, the owner's key at his belt, and the routine of opening and closing, far from Hollywood's perfect choreography. When cattle drives crossed the plains and locomotives cut across the horizon, the saloon's swinging door marked the arrival of what people called civilization. More than just a bar and glasses, it was a public square, an improvised post office, and a stage for negotiations in lands where the law still rode in on horseback. Miners, cowboys, railroad workers, and merchants shared card tables. It was where people got hired, unions were arranged, and loneliness was kept at bay. On the still forming map of the United States, saloons anchored a rough kind of social life, supporting expansion and helping to establish roots in towns. It's no accident that the movies made them an emblem of the West. Doors swinging open, a weary piano, silences just before the duel. Images that shaped national folklore. The modern bar is its heir, amplified music instead of a piano, loud conversation, and the same meeting ritual. It's a place where adults from all walks of life socialize, play games, place bets, and close deals, and sometimes seek a little discretion in the crowd. Looking at these spaces reveals the machinery of social life. Saloons and later bars were laboratories of coexistence, where rules were tested, alliances were built, and conflicts were settled with words, cards, or bravado. Understanding this role helps us read the history that shaped us, and notice how much of the Old West still lives on in nightlife, in every toast and every deal sealed at the bar.